Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave. So Dave's back from vacation and we're back
Hi.
on the Factivist Report. So we're going to talk tonight about how little respect the GOP has for the labor pool in America. And we're going to talk about the fact that we have a child labor crisis brewing, and it will get worse if the Republicans are given power. So without further ado, here's Dave.
I'm going to warn you, the first few minutes of this is going to be a history lesson because the GOP wants you to forget everything that's happened, in America's history because they don't want you to realize they're doing it again. This is involving the labor force in the United States, the history of the labor force, which is mostly minorities, immigrants, and a lot of child labor as well. Let me be very clear about this one thing. Corporations don't care about you. They are not job creators. They are profit creators. That's what they are supposed to be doing. And any way they can cut labor costs and cut operational costs are going to do it. In some cases, they're going to break the law to do it, which is why we have the Department of Labor and why we have certain agencies to regulate this stuff. You
And
might think that
honestly,
regulation is bad, but
if the GOP has their way, they'll deregulate all of it. They won't care.
we're going to talk about what the GOP is trying to do in regards to children working. Uh, Take away the requirement that parents need to give their permission. And I thought that, the GOP was all about parental rights. Or take away their right to have lunch. By the way, that is part of the Federal Labor Standards Act. That is a key part of it. You do get to have bathroom breaks. You do get to have a lunch break. You do have the right to hydrate, especially in warm areas. They cannot lock you in buildings like they did historically in the past. And a few things when you take a look at uh, state legislatures or state governments changing child labor law, understand that with the Department of Labor, if the federal law is stricter and and states it outright, that law is the land. So I don't know, the Louisiana law that I'm going to talk about with children and not having to have a lunch. Somebody's going to sue and somebody's going to win that one because the Department of Labor is very clear about lunch breaks and hours. So, and a couple other things before I go, or before I start the whole thing, all the way up to your fearless MAGA leader, Donald Trump, we have hypocrisy rampant. Donald Trump talks about how horrible the immigration crisis is. Number one, he squashed the immigration bill for two reasons. Number one, he wanted to put pressure on Biden and make Biden look ineffective. Number two, his company hired and maybe even still hires undocumented immigrants.
It's,
So while
I'm sorry, but when I travel to Washington on business, I stayed in a hotel that was It was not, like a Trump Tower, but I stayed
Right.
in a Trump hotel in Washington. And I can tell you that all of the room cleaners were, I spoke to them. So I know.
And when asked about it, he said, I wouldn't know about that. I don't run the businesses. He's the owner.
He's the owner of the businesses.
He's the
Okay.
owner of the business. He's responsible. That's how that works. Uh, we're going to, I peppered in a couple of things from the Heritage Foundation. You guys might roll your eyes, especially those who watch our shows all the time, like, oh my God, you're going to do Heritage Foundation again. It's important. I'm sorry. We missed this part of it. We missed their attack on
And labor.
labor law. We did. And this is important. If they don't care about the kids, they sure as hell
They
ain't
won't
going to
be
care about you when you're an adult.
right.
Just saying. So let's
What they
start
care
this thing.
about is the corporate state more than
Right,
anything.
right. So da, 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 da.
By the way, the singing, you don't have to pay for that. He does that gladly.
I might have to go to my union for that. All right, hold on.
God help us.
So this issue goes all the way back to the beginning of this country. Okay, we know we're a capitalist country, or we like our money. All right.
And
So
Americans like their shit too. Don't
yeah,
make no bones about that.
indentured servitude was a part of the American lifestyle from the beginning. From and it wasn't just about African Americans being taken from Africa and made into slaves. You had Chinese workers, you had immigrants coming to this country, and whether it be adults and some children working in horrendous conditions, working 10 and 12 hours a day for a pittance of a salary with no bathroom breaks, no lunches, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, and right here, the exploitation of immigrant workers only encourages more and worse abuse. Just remember that. And it will it will trickle down to you eventually. We'll talk about it in future shows. I just like this. Now, again, there's a reason why the GOP, the Republicans, the right wing, the Heritage Foundation, all of those guys, they don't like history because history doesn't lie. Documents don't lie. um, this stuff happened.
I love that
Uh,
poster, by the way.
Yep, this poster was part of the Zen Education Project. I was
Love that
told
poster.
to give them their props if I'm going to show this, so I'm giving them their props. The main reason I wanted to show this is for this quote from Frederick Douglass: "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will," which is why we needed and still need the labor union movement. We have to have a labor. And by the way, the Heritage Foundation, with their Project 2025, they are looking to completely dismantle the labor movement. I'll get into that
Yeah.
further down.
Here's another great one too. There's another great quote right there in the back at that. The social gains of humanity did not invent themselves and will not defend themselves. Only organized people can do that.
And if you notice, a lot of what the GOP does is they try to split people and have them fight one another. Have straight people fight the LGBTQ community. Have white people fight immigrants or Black Americans, whatever it is. They just want men and women, just constantly, which is part of the power of the union movement. Got everybody together fighting for a specific cause. This is the Chinese migrants. that built the Transcontinental Railroad. Countless of them died while doing this. And that was in the 19th century. This is in 1906. I understand that this was a fiction novel, but it was based on real events in the meatpacking industry. That was Upton Sinclair.
Yep.
That was 1906. Then several of these incidents happened, but this is considered one of the larger ones. You had the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Shirtwaists were kind of like blouses that they made in this plant, led to workplace safety laws. This was in 1911. The Federal Labor Standards Act did not get passed until 1938. This took decades. And you had um, dozens of people die in this fire. Some had to jump to their deaths to avoid getting burned to death. Um, they tried to put the fire out, but the hose was connected to a pump that was completely rusted. The doors were locked so that people couldn't walk outside and take breaks. So they were basically trapped inside this building. And this was 1911. Okay. Yeah, yeah. All right, hold on. Yeah, yeah. So, so in 1938, this was signed, which created basic standards, work standards, um, set for overtime pay, child labor laws, um, work hours, compensation, the whole bit. Initially, it was a 42-hour work week. It was reduced to 40 hours 2 years after this law was passed by FDR. This is just a history and the purpose of the the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act. The
Saying that 5 times fast.
yeah. So let's just talk. I want to give a little bit more backstory on how the conditions were. Conditions were deplorable in the cotton mills. Children were often employed overnight for shifts of 12 hours a day. Cold water was thrown in their faces to keep them awake at night, and accidents were common on the job. In 1900, 35,000 workers were killed on the job, another 500,000 were maimed. Enough? Again, the businesses didn't give a damn. They were a necessary resource. They weren't even human to these companies. More history. And now we have the Department of Labor. I have several of these up. This is in regards to child labor standards, and this is primarily what we're going to be talking about this week because the child labor standards are being attacked little by little, bit by bit, they're being chipped away at
Just on a state by state
on a
basis,
state by state
just like
basis.
they did with women's rights, just like they did with abortion. They just chipped away at it right from the get go, and that's what they're doing with this.
So,
Mostly in red states, I have to say.
right.
Arkansas,
Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, actually Missouri.
Yep.
There's Wisconsin, I believe there's one in there. So and I know were incidents in Michigan, but they're really, I mean, think about it. Think about who's governor there. She's taken action on that. So I want to read what's in blue because it's important. So alert for employers. Some state child labor laws, including some of the provisions of the state law listed below, are inconsistent with federal child labor provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act and its implementing regulations, where a state child labor law is less restrictive than the federal law applies. Do you think they care? There's one part that isn't implicitly implied, which is about parental permission. I know a couple of states are going after that. I know Sarah Huckabee Sanders called that an unnecessary burden for the parents. To me, what happened to states' rights? Allowing your kid, giving your kid permission to work or not giving your kid permission to work? Just saying. So I'm not going to go through all these, but I think this one, actually, no, not this one. This one I might do more next week because it's more about um, a general state of what they do.
Yep.
Right on paid leave, right to fair pay, farm workers' rights, young workers' rights, etc. Okay. This summary of the major laws. But this is the one. What jobs are off limits for kids? And you're going to hear there's several instances and examples of kids who got killed, and it's mostly dealing with heavy machinery or being up on high places, which are not supposed to be. No, 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 no. Um, so dangerous jobs that are off limits. And by the way, the reason I went no, no, no is for some reason my computer is sharing files and it has some labor stuff in there, and I can't, that's like a no. You can't share that information. I don't know why it's on here, and I got to figure it out. But dangerous jobs that are off limits. Below are places and types of work that are off limits for kids under 18. These, I mean,
This is
these
common
are
sense.
it's common sense. Meat processing and slicing, power-driven saws, roofing. Kids under 18 can't do most roofing jobs. There was a kid just recently fell off a roof in a construction job and
Olympic
died.
floors.
Driving, power-driven woodworking machinery, compactors and balers. Another kid, I believe, got killed around a baler. Explosives, really? Forklifts, skid steers, demolition, mining, logging, forestry, and sawmilling. Power-driven bakery machines, which are very dangerous. Radioactive,
Radioactive material.
I mean, brick and tile, trenching and excavation, metalworking.
You know,
Okay.
in my store, I know I've said this before. You cannot make a key or make paint until you are 18 years old because of the equipment used and the moving parts. And Massachusetts will enforce those laws.
If you're more interested in all of the different facets, this is just so much information. This is only about youth, the underage labor law stuff. It's right here. Here are some child labor law statistics. So you see it steadily going up. It's cases with child labor violations, 955 in 2023. Minors employed in violation, 5,792. Cases with hazardous occupation violations, 196. Minors employed in violation of hazardous occupation, 502. Now, these are only the ones that were caught and probably prosecuted. The Department of Labor is the only one that can enforce these laws. And right now, what do you think the House GOP is doing? They're trying to slash not only the Border Patrol, but the Department of Labor. Now, the Democrats were able to make a deal in which the Department of Labor budget, at least for now, is flat. It didn't go down, but it didn't go up either. And they do need funds to take care of this because when these laws are enacted in different states, these corporations are going to try to bend laws.
And they're just as happy to keep it flat because they're hoping on a Donald Trump victory, and then they can destroy the
Exactly.
Department of Labor, just like they can destroy the Department of Public Education, and they can destroy the EPA. People need to be aware exactly what their plans are.
Now, not going to get into the details, but this is a very, very detailed thing. You have non-agricultural work and you have agricultural work. Agricultural work actually consists of most or like a majority of the accidents involving kids. So there are different rules involving that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Don't they have a separate set of rules for kids who work on family farms?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I just wanted to.
They do. Because the family is responsible.
Right, right.
So they tend to be a little more lenient or allow more stuff with parental supervision,
Right,
with their judgment.
right.
So now we're gonna get to the Heritage Foundation. Now the statement from this individual is very measured, and you might think it's reasonable, but trust me, it's not. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to gut the Department of Labor, gut the National Labor Relations Board, gut the Equal Opportunity Commission, EEOC, and gut unions. So just understand that because they want to do whatever the hell they want to do to increase their profits. So this is David Burton, a senior fellow in economic policy from the Thomas A. Rowe Institute, a guide to labor and employment law reforms. Now, this was from October 2020, but this is basically what they're saying. Laws governing the employer-employee relationship are extremely complex. Compliance costs and regulatory risks are high, and these costs are primarily borne by employees in the form of lower wages.
That's the
The
first line
exist,
of shit right there.
yeah, the existing labor and employment laws raise the cost of employing people,
Only if you abuse them.
and only if you get caught.
Right,
Retard job creation. Now, let me again, businesses are not in the business of creating jobs, they're in the business of creating profit. Understand that.
right,
You're there because they need you there, because they don't want to clean the shit off the floor.
right.
Retard job creation, reduce wages, and hinder flexibility of both employers and employees. Now, my response to that is, if you keep a safe work environment, you won't have people getting hurt or killed, and you will
You won't be
reduce
fined.
cost. You won't be fined, and you won't have to deal with compensation.
But once you take those rules away, you can bet your life they won't give a shit about who dies and
They
who
will
lives.
not care. They
Yeah,
don't care.
because they won't be
And
liable once the laws are gone.
please don't. Well, what about Amazon? What about them? My stance stands on them. They abuse labor law too,
They
but
they they were they weren't they fined. They were fined by OSHA, weren't they?
they were
For keeping their. They have their warehouses aren't air conditioned. They were
correct.
keeping the doors closed because they were afraid of theft, and they kept fucking ambulances outside one of the facilities just in case somebody passed out. You know, give me a break, okay? And
Right.
as far as that whole statement about hinders the flexibility of employers and employees, you're an employee. You don't have any flexibility. I work in hourly labor. You have no flexibility. It's bullshit.
Also have a disproportionately adverse impact on small firms because compliance costs don't increase linearly with size.
By the way,
Eh, yeah,
small firms can get around all of it. I work in a company that employs 9 people and they get around all of it, all of that. Okay. Every single day. Just so everyone understands.
labor and employment laws should be reformed to increase freedom,
Here we
enhance
go.
workplace flexibility, improve productivity, and reduce administrative and legal costs. None of that means anything if you have people employing kids as young as 10 years old in a McDonald's, by the way, in Kentucky.
Till 2
Or,
a.m. Working
right,
till 2 a.m.
where is the flexibility for a girl working for a cleaning company? Uh, I believe they were cleaning for a slaughterhouse. That company got caught, and her family, I believe it was her father, was arrested, put in jail because he took her to and from work, and he lost the job because she was 13. And by the way, yes, she was an immigrant or is an immigrant. So where's the flexibility there? I'm just saying. Immigrants have historically been hired, and also children, because they typically will not fight back, especially undocumented immigrants. If they get in an accident, they're not going to get paid for that.
Correct.
They'll just lose their job and that'll be it.
So my grandparents came here through Ellis Island. Okay. And they opened a small store in Everett, whatever. But I have stories of like that was my mother's side of the family. The store was like attached right to their house. I lived there for a while when I was little. But my father actually never went to high school because he had to quit school to help his family make money in order to live and stay in America. So people need to get a clue here. All right. The idea
So
was to improve the situation so that wouldn't be the case for anybody, actually.
when Deb mentioned this as a topic, I basically used this article as the foundation and just kind of built around it. This isn't about a labor shortage. These jobs that the migrant workers do, most Americans wouldn't touch. Let's just be real about
Let's
it.
put it this way: they wouldn't touch it for the money that the migrants are getting paid. I can tell you that.
Right,
I have a guy who is a contractor. He's got a job, but he's on the side. He's a contractor, and he's a Trump voter. I know that for a fact too. But he has no problem employing immigrant labor because they're the hardest workers in the world, and he says it, and they
right,
do it for cheap. He says that
right,
the only hindrance for him is the language barrier, but they use Google Translate. So just so everybody understands, okay?
right.
The Trump supporters love to hire the cheap immigrant labor.
They're all about the law until it affects them.
Right.
Okay. There was the individual running for a New York seat who was in security, and he was caught with numerous labor violations. You know, so let's get real. This is an extremely good article. It basically encapsulates a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, a lot of the examples. The New York Times and the Washington Post exposés. I put them in here. The two 10-year-olds working at a McDonald's in Louisville, Kentucky until 2 a.m. I put them in there as well. Okay. So, but this is a very good encapsulation of examples of child labor and also examples of laws that uh, people in state government are trying to put through. Like in Wisconsin, uh, allowing 14-year-olds to serve alcohol in bars and restaurants. What do you think's going to happen there? Hey, seriously, you think they're not going to drink?
What is wrong with people? What is it that they don't get?
Okay, so as I told you, the Department of Labor, or the Labor Department, um, is the only department that enforces labor law, child labor law specifically, in this particular case, but they're the ones that look at and enforce labor law primarily. And they were fighting, a budget fight. And as I said, they flattened the budget out. And then that article. Here's the example. 305 minors, including two 10-year-olds, working illegally in 3 McDonald's franchises in Kentucky. And these 3 franchises paid $212,000 in fines collectively. So I don't know, how it got split up or whatever.
It's not enough.
No,
Whatever.
this is an
Here's
expose.
the other thing. Here's the other thing.
Yeah,
If they make enough money to pay the fines, they'll just keep doing it and keep paying the fines.
right. That is
At some point, it has to be, the pain has to be greater than that.
Yeah, it has to be prohibitive. That is a classic rule of unions. At some point, you have to make the penalty prohibitive
Right,
for these. You have to progressively keep them from doing things, just like discipline has to be progressive for someone who doesn't come to work. So, and OSHA is the same way. The more you violate OSHA laws, the higher the fines become, and they become crazy high.
right.
This is an extremely good article in regards to migrant children working jobs across the U.S. Arriving in record numbers, are ending up in dangerous jobs that violate child labor laws, including in national company factories that make products for well-known brands like Cheetos and Fruit of the Looms. Okay,
You know,
so
one other comment here is that most trafficking of children
right,
is
it's
not
for
for
labor.
sex, it's for
Yep,
labor. Okay,
yep. We've made that point
we
before.
made that point before. That most of the child trafficking is for child labor, cheap labor.
Now, Deb, what do you notice about this picture? Are they showing his face?
Nope.
He's terrified.
Yeah, because he's
He
afraid he's
doesn't
gonna get
want to lose his
deported.
job.
Right.
He doesn't want to lose his income. Okay, 15 years old. Most of these people are not showing their face.
Right.
Okay, there's a reason for that. It's a Washington Post article. This example that I said before. 27 minors were in a Nebraska slaughterhouse. Now, this girl was in middle school. She was 13 years old, working $19 an hour. And when they found out about this, not only did she lose this income, her father went to jail for taking her to and from work. So do you think these kids are going to say anything if they're being mistreated? Of course not. They're in they're in brutal living conditions.
Right.
They're trying to survive, and these companies are taking advantage.
And yet we do have people still spreading the bullshit that Joe Biden's giving them credit cards with money on it to spend when they come into the country. That isn't the way it works here, no matter
No,
what anybody thinks. All right.
no.
It is not.
So this is just another example. A 16-year-old boy, two minors died on the job in Missouri and Wisconsin. This teenager died in Mississippi, working at a chicken slaughterhouse, I believe it was,
Christ.
an industrial site. Okay. Third worker death at the plant since December 2020. Tomas Perez, he moved from the U.S. from Guatemala 6 years ago, cleaning machinery as part of a sanitation crew when he became trapped in equipment on a conveyor belt. Died at the scene. Now, is that family going to be compensated? I doubt it very much. This is numbers just for 2003 to 2016. 452 children died on the job in the United States from 2003 to 2016. And we're not talking about injuries or kids who were maimed, lost a limb, lost a finger, lost an arm. That's happened too. Children were killed on
52%
the
of them
job.
died in agriculture, huh?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
Yep.
Children were killed on the job in construction, retail, transportation, and manufacturing and logging. 52% of them died working in agriculture. A 12-year-old was cleaning a drainage system in Tennessee in March when an ATV flipped on him. Died from the injuries he sustained. A 14-year-old boy with his father was trapped in 8 feet of feed in a silo while working with his father on a Wisconsin dairy farm in June. Both of them died. Then uh, another child was crushed by a New Holland LS 170 skid loader while attempting to move bales of hay on a dairy farm in upstate New York in 2014. So, just a few examples. Now, if child labor laws are relaxed or even eliminated, we're going to go right back to the industrial accidents that happened in the early 1900s. Don't think that we can't go back to that, where hundreds of people, hundreds of teenagers will die in a clip. And by the way, I don't care who they are, adult, children, migrants, or American born. These are lives. They have a right to live, and they have a right to live and thrive with all of their body parts intact. This is an AFL-CIO information sheet talking about a little more, it only goes up to 2022, but it's a little more up to date. Young workers are at an increased risk of injury on the job, with workers ages 15 to 24 experiencing higher rates of work-related injuries than adults ages 25 to 44 years. 419 workers younger than 25 died on the job in 2022, compared with 350 in 2021, including 19 workers younger than 18. The number of workers killed on the job at ages 20 to 24 increased 12% to 323 facilities in 2022 from 289 in 2020. Young workers, and here's the key here, young workers are at elevated risk due to limited or no prior work experience, lack of workplace safety and health training and supervision, and limitations in strength or cognitive ability needed to perform tasks. They are also, and I would say much less likely to recognize and voice safety concerns or be aware of their legal protection and worker protection agencies, which companies are going to take advantage of. Now, here's the next piece. And by the way, as I said before, we're going to go back to the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 once again. The Heritage Foundation supports the promise to America's children.
Yeah.
You can read this if you want. It's homophobia. Period.
Yep.
They're just talking about, they're sexualizing children and all that crap.
No, they're not. That's a bunch of
No, they're not. Okay. They're
shit.
worried about teaching tolerance of the LGBTQ community. Okay. Preventing children from being exposed to or used in pornography and making school curriculums
Yeah.
free of graphic sexual content.
I just
Stop it.
say something about the word tolerance, okay? Can I just say something about? I have a real problem with that word. Yeah. I know that's a popular word. That's. I'm not talking about you, Dave. I'm talking about the word tolerance, the way it's used. I think children should be taught acceptance of anybody who is not like them. I think they should be taught.
Did I say the word tolerance? I apologize.
No,
actually,
you don't have to because that's what everybody says. Everybody uses the word tolerance. The word tolerance to me is compromising, in my opinion. Oh, I'll tolerate you. I don't have to accept you, but I'll tolerate you. You know what? I think children should be taught to accept. I don't think Jesus ever used the word tolerance. I believe he used acceptance.
I don't think so.
So I'm thinking we need to get off that tolerant bullshit because I'm not tolerant of that at all.
You're right, because we're not tolerating Donald Trump.
No, fuck no. I will not tolerate him.
So,
and therefore I will not accept
honestly,
him.
Yeah, we're not accepting him either.
Nope.
But we don't accept a just defiance against acceptance. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, preserving children's right to free speech, refusing to affirm messages that violate their beliefs or conscience. I don't know what I guess like if a kid wants to be called her instead of him, they have the right to refuse it. I don't know. I don't know where that's going. But
there's some horse shit going on now. I think it might be Missouri. I haven't looked. Sarah posted it in Telegram, but I haven't gone to the actual document. But they're proposing a law now that will criminalize it when teachers use the preferred pronouns.
I think it might even be North Dakota is trying to do that too. Remember the
I know
whole
definitely
preemptive strike nonsense?
Yep.
Yeah. But all of this is just homophobic nonsense. Let's just call it what it is. Okay. This isn't about safety of kids. It isn't.
Nope.
Now, remember that whole thing with parental rights? This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders with her new legislation. Yeah. The governor believes protecting kids is most important, but the permit or the permission from parents was an arbitrary burden on parents to get permission from the government for their child to get a job. No. It's ensuring that the parents know that their kids are working. All child labor laws that actually protect children still apply. I want to know what those are that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is, cherry picking. And we expect businesses to comply just as they are required to do now. Really? Let's check to see how many businesses violated child labor law in Arkansas and what she did. So when someone does that, other states are going to follow suit. Missouri bill would loosen child labor law by removing work permit requirements. You knew that was going to happen,
But
and more states.
I really do believe that the other article that you had with Sarah Huckabee Sanders had the reason
Yeah.
why they've pushed this. Because the Biden administration, it says at the bottom, has plans to crack down on labor exploitation of migrant children across the country. That's what,
Right.
that's what all of this, that's part of also, don't forget, like I said, they love to exploit migrant labor, even though they don't like migrants.
Right.
So,
Well, and again, remember the House was really pushing to strip funding from the Department of Labor,
right. Yep.
and they didn't win that fight. So there's that. So I'm going to go to Texas for a minute, and this is just a general thing.
Better than me.
Things, you know, things that happened in Texas. Texas migrant deaths. 51 migrants dead after overheated truck is abandoned in Texas. Now, the first one that happened, Abbott was like, "Oh, this is a tragedy." The second one, well, whatever, it happens. So, and remember, Greg Abbott with his famous death balls was freaking saw blades attached to it. So, migrants and immigrants and undocumented immigrants posed an opportunity to the GOP in a few different ways. Number one, it gives them something to target Biden over and the radical left over. Number two, when they do things like this, and when Trump talks about when I'm president, I'm going to deport millions or whatever, it makes them sound tough. But at the same
Throw them into
time,
camps. What are the other?
but at the same time, they are more likely to be the ones to exploit undocumented immigrants in their own companies, including but not limited to Donald J. Trump himself.
Right.
This is one that I mentioned. Louisiana Republicans vote to end lunch break for child workers. Now, to me, this is just a clear violation of federal labor law. So if this actually goes through and kids like pass out because they're, hypoglycemic, or, if they have a medical condition, or they're just hungry, or they're thirsty, or they have to go to the bathroom and they have an accident, there's going to be some major problems in wherever this is, Louisiana. So the next portion of this, Donald Trump, he he's tough on immigration. Immigration is, hurts American workers. This is from uh, November 1st, 2018. Okay. So let me read a little bit of this. Illegal immigration affects the lives of all Americans. Illegal immigration hurts American workers, burdens American taxpayers, undermines public safety. Come on now. You undermine public safety by using undocumented immigrants and loosening the safety standards. Uh, place enormous strain on local schools, hospitals, and communities in general, taking precious resources away from the poorest Americans who need them the most. Cut the crap. Illegal immigration costs our country billions and billions of dollars each year. Good Lord. All right. America is a welcoming country, and under my leadership, it's a welcoming country. I'm going to stop there.
Well, please.
Remember, some Republicans got upset that that Trump asked Republicans to kill the immigration bill. Now, part of it is to make Biden look bad, okay. But the
But
other part,
yeah,
what happened?
go ahead.
The other part, okay,
Yeah,
Trump employed undocumented workers. He probably still does. There are several articles here.
without a doubt, still does.
Yeah, of course. But here's so, you know, uh, Trump happily employing undocumented workers. These are stonemasons. These are people who work in the hotels, in all different facets. Find questions about president's use of undocumented workers. This is in 2019. And finally, Trump breaks his silence by saying,
I don't run them.
I don't know because I don't run the company. You own the company, you're responsible. Okay.
He should.
Now,
He really is.
one of the things Deb gave me these two articles. I read them. He's like, this is very, very important. It goes back to Project 2025. They're trying to dismantle the workforce. The labor movement, the labor movement and the college movement. I understand, the college students are what they are protesting right this moment, but the college protest movement and the labor movement, those drive public policy in many ways. And they're trying to destroy unions, by the way. So this is your favorite group, the Heritage Foundation, releasing the battle plan, which is Agenda 2025. Now, Agenda 2025, as we have stated before, it's a battle plan for if Trump wins or if any Republican wins in the future. Understand that when the Republicans win, they're going to try and implement a lot of these things.
Right. And by the way, they have been doing this um, since Ronald Reagan was president.
Right.
Nobody, no prior president embraced the Heritage Foundation project the way Trump did in his first term. He gave them 68% of what they wanted.
Right.
And that is far more than any other president. And I promise you, if he's back in, he will give them much more than 68% this time
Right.
around.
And Reagan, they consider at the time, they considered him, their leader or whatever. But Trump supercharged him.
Yep.
Policy blueprint for next Republican president offers nothing to workers. Now, for next Republican president, doesn't have to be Trump. Okay, could be the next election. And this goes cutting deep. This tries to undercut all unions by creating these like worker entities that have no bargaining power. I mean, it goes deep, and I'll talk more about it. I have to actually look more into it and see how, far they've been able to get. But this is in no way, shape, or form here to protect the American family, the workers, anyone, except for the corporations and the owners of those corporations.
Correct.
So when I was looking at all of this, I hope that one of the overlying themes that you have gotten from this, or one of the messages, is that the GOP could give a damn about you, could give a damn about the working class, could care less about immigrants, migrants, whether they're deported or not. They're people. It's human life. Okay. So many people got up in arms and they became furious. And I did too. I got mad at the whole Christy Nome thing about shooting a puppy. This is beyond a pale. Okay. The Republic, it doesn't shock me, what Christy Nome said. It is a disregard for life. And what these companies are doing and politicians are doing by taking away basic worker protection, the right to go to the bathroom, the right to have a lunch, the right not to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Back in the day, those migrant workers were working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for $6 a week in pay. Now I understand it was like 1900, but still that wasn't that much for a week's pay.
By the way, if you look at, I brought this up to Dave at the beginning. If you take a look at the whole um, building of the copper kings and all of that out in the Midwest, okay?
Yep.
You
Yep.
look at those people lived in paper shanty shacks with
Right.
no heat. They were Irish immigrants that made
Right.
those copper barons rich. Okay, they had no running water. They had no heat. They slept on cots or they slept on paper on the floor, and they had sewage running right through their encampment. Okay, I mean, the most deplorable living conditions, and the white man in America built their fortune on the backs of these immigrants. And that is actually the case in much of the United States. That is actually the case much of the United States. Donald Trump said he built the New York skyline. That was actually built by immigrant architects. Okay, so no, he did not build the skyline. He's got one of the most unsightly buildings on that skyline, but he certainly didn't build that, quote, iconic skyline.
Now, where was I going with the disregard for human life and not caring and all of that stuff? It's antisocial behavior, whether it be psychopathy or sociopathy. This is where we're going with the GOP. They don't care about you. Give
They
me
don't care
something.
about this country.
They
really
don't.
They care about their own power, but they don't care about the United States of America. Not as we envision it. They only care about what they can turn it into.
I am a little flabbergasted by people in my own union yet just being diehard Trump supporters.
Yeah, well,
Because it's like, how much more? How much more do you need to see? What else do you need to see? And by the way, at some point, whether it be on this show or another show or whatever I got to do, I will be talking about the United States Postal Service and Louis DeJoy, who, by the way, has 23 safety violations through his now he isn't uh the CEO anymore, I don't believe, but he is behind the scenes with XPO Logistics. You can't tell me that he didn't know about some of this stuff. And we're having safety issues in the United States Postal Service more than I've ever seen before. So everybody needs to wake up. I mean, all I want is to make my salary and come home safe and make sure all of my members come home safe as well. And all the employees, whether they're members or not, come home safe, intact, with no broken bones, nothing. But if you relax employment standards right now, the Postal Service, uh 18 years of age. Okay. And you have to show proof that you are an American citizen or some kind of work visa. So if those standards are lifted, God only knows what the working conditions are going to be like. They're the worst I've seen in a really long time, to be honest with you, before anything gets lifted. So just be aware. They they're not protecting children. They don't care if they're immigrant children or not. They're children. They're
What
human
makes you think they're going
life.
to care about adults? They don't.
They don't. And by the way, when we talk like this is our radical, left-wing agenda, caring about human life. I mean, I don't know. I, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah,
It,
you know,
it's your choice. It's your choice.
just
And
like
I'm
Anthony
sure,
Fauci said, I don't know what to tell you that about having to care, people having to care about each other. He did say that when they were talking about spreading the disease without, you know, without any kind of care whatsoever as to who they may be giving it to. It's the same principle in theory.
and I
These
can't,
people, the people who come here
yeah,
from another country are coming here because they think life is better here.
right.
They're not coming here because they're getting a credit card from Joe Biden and they're immediately put on welfare. That actually is not the way it works. I can tell you that.
And they're not coming here to be exploited either.
Right.
Now,
They're
I
coming here
know,
because there's supposed to be a better situation for them here so they can live a better life here.
I know that even with the smaller wages that they get, they feel like they're kings in some cases. But again, there's a reason that what did you say the minimum wage is going up to as of July?
1050.
10.50. Now, can you live on 10.50? I can't.
No.
The calculated real living wage is what? Something like 35?
Yep. The
Just think
fight for
about that.
15 is running about 15 years behind. The fight for 15, in some states, the minimum wage is now $15. It was made 15 in Massachusetts this year. But, the fight for 15 has been going on since 2016, 2015. So now
Right.
the fight for 16 is actually the fight for 35, but we're just getting to 15. In
Right.
some states, we haven't even gotten there yet. It's
And in
9,
some states,
I believe, in Mississippi. I forget. It's some,
just think of how many small mom and pop businesses pay people under the table. And do you think the Department of Labor can catch every single one of them? Of course they
Well,
can't.
first of all, let me just tell you something. They don't even have to pay you under the table. The bottom line is my store is small enough so that I don't even have accumulated vacation or sick time. There
Right.
are there are outs for small family owned
Right.
businesses. They don't have to follow those rules if they keep their employment level numbers low. And we don't have a lot of people that work in my store. I believe we have 8 or 9, including the manager. Then they don't have to worry about paying you accumulated vacation or sick time. If you're
Now,
sick, you're out sick without pay.
do you know how many employees you have to have
I thought it
to
was 25.
I thought so too,
I thought
actually.
it was
I thought it
25.
was
And I can
25.
tell you with the 2 stores that my owner owns, it'd be under 25. I can tell you.
Right. Well, not for nothing, do you guys run it with 9 or 10 relatively okay?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It's kind of
Right.
difficult when 2 people are out sick.
Right.
Okay. But,
And then what happens? They turn around and go, well, you got to make sure that you get, no, it's not my job to make sure they come to work.
right,
It isn't. It's your job.
right,
Okay. I come to work every day. So, or I don't call out like these people. I go through that too.
right.
Well, if you just have to make sure that your people come to work. No. But, that's another thing. It is true that to take advantage of all the labor protections, you really have to um, follow the rules yourself. Come to work on time, don't be belligerent, all of that kind of thing. And a lot of that you'll see more in a factory setting, like where I'm at,
Yep.
than in a retail. You're not going to see people, showing out for the most part in a retail store for the most part. I don't think that's probable. But is in conclusion to all of this, there is a reason not only to make Biden look bad, there is a reason that immigrant immigrants and children are being hired because they do not talk back. They are afraid. They're afraid of losing the position. They're afraid of, getting in trouble, especially migrant children. They're afraid to say anything about safety conditions, about, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. No, that's too heavy for me. They'll do what they have to do. Safety be damned. And then, and also, wages. They're not gonna argue about wages. That girl who lost her cleaning job in that slaughterhouse, she was getting paid $19 an hour.
Right.
Now I don't know what the working conditions were. I don't know, if she was allowed to take breaks or any of that stuff. But once she lost it, her life collapsed because her parents got in legal trouble and she lost, and the family lost their income stream. So you think, I mean, you talk about a lack of whistleblower protection. These people are not going to say anything. So that is what we have for tonight.
Yep.
I will say there's a lot more, and you think it's bad for the children. There are adults working in 106-degree heat, and Texas, I believe they just passed a law saying that they don't have to give them water. I mean, what the hell? So,
Wonder about what just exactly what kind of people these are. Honestly, I can't even imagine.
as I said, sociopaths and psychopaths, they
Right,
don't care about human life.
right.
Just let's I'm just gonna, read for a second. ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder, can look different in different people. A person described as psychopath has emotional deficits. But here's the bottom line: they lack remorse and take pleasure in manipulating others or causing them pain, or they don't care. A person described as sociopath breaks rules. I don't know. Just, Donald Trump.
Right.
I mean, he's breaking the rules all the while complaining about Biden, and his agenda when he doesn't uh create a solution. He just creates more problems,
He's a fucking criminal.
and he's a criminal.
He's a criminal. He's an adjudicated civilly accused and proven rapist. I mean, I can't even begin to start. Don't even get me started with this guy because I just can't even believe this guy is on the fucking ballot. I can't. I still can't to this day.
And these stories that, well, Biden and Trump are neck and neck. Just the fact that they're saying it, I don't know if it's true or not, but just the fact that they're saying it blows my mind. and scares the living hell out of me.
Well, you got to what, you got to also wonder about if that's the actual case, and I'm not sure that it actually is.
I don't
When
think
you
so
get to
either,
that
but
point, you have to also question, just exactly what's going on with the American people. Where is their moral standing? If they can just pretend they don't see that part of Donald Trump for whatever the fuck the attraction is, you have to wonder about what's going on with the American people. Where is their, what did they do? Check their character at the door? They must have. I'm sorry. But, when I see posts from supposedly Democratic voters and they making the comment that they haven't decided between Biden and RFK Jr., well, there's no comparison there. You should be deciding between RFK Jr. and Trump. But there's no comparison, and there's nothing to decide between. If you're deciding between RFK Jr. and Joe Biden, you're deciding essentially whether you're a fascist or a Democrat. That's exactly what you're deciding. You're not deciding about who the better Democratic candidate is, because, first of all, RFK Jr. is not even a Democrat anymore. All right,
I don't know if he ever was, but yeah.
No, he was never a Democrat. He was a fucking thorn in the Kennedy side from the time he was in prep school. Okay.
The funny thing is, the Republicans are freaking out because now they realize that RFK is going to take more votes
Good.
away from
Keep
Trump
taking
than
Good.
and good.
Good. Keep fucking taking it. Yep. Yeah. You're trying deciding between Biden and RFK Jr. Really, I'd like to know what you're on, because I need some, please. But anyway, that's what we got, and we shall be back next week. Have a lovely week. We'll put this up by tomorrow. I promise.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Those last couple of articles, about Heritage Foundation and their plan. If you guys want to take a look at it, that's your homework. That's what I'm gonna, that's what I'm gonna base everything on is that. And there are different legislations out there that they're looking to do. They're looking to gut overtime. They're looking to gut union protections. They're looking to gut everything.
Yep.
So, and if Trump wins, all bets are off.
Right.
So,
all right, gang. Next week. We shall see you then.